Hello, everyone. My name is Moonshine. I'm the host of today's AMA with Alchemix, another interesting project with true utilities. Alchemix is basically a decentralized finance platform that offers self-repaying, non-liquidating loans by allowing users to deposit assets. So today we are going to see how these users can borrow up to even 50% of their deposit value and earn interest. So we have Scoopy here with us. So Scoopy, maybe you can start by introducing yourself and the rest of your team and how you guys founded Alchemix as a project.
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm Scoopy Trooples. I am one of the founders of Alchemix. We're a project that we launched back in 2021, and we innovated in the space by creating something that only really DeFi can do, which is self-repaying loans. Um, and on my team, we have about 12 people on our team, and that range just from front-end developers to Solidity, like a smart contract developers. Some people who work in marketing and business development, and yeah, that's our team.
Interesting. So
Mhm.
basically, like the intro I just gave, I see that one of you guys' main mechanism or innovation is self-repaying loans mechanism. So can you elaborate on how Alchemix self-repaying loan system operates, particularly the process by which deposited collateral generates yield to automatically repay loans over time?
Yeah, so in DeFi, there are multiple ways that you can get yield. For ETH, the most prevalent way is through liquid staking. So you would stake your ETH tokens to be a validator, and then you would earn staking rewards for doing that. And there's an innovation that was built with this called liquid staking tokens. So you could basically have a liquid token that is staking in the background, running validators, but then you can also have it in your wallet and freely exchange it in decentralized exchanges, use it as collateral in protocols like Aave and also Alchemix. So that is one of our main yield source for ETH. And then for stable coins, we offer so MakerDAO's DAI coin, USDC, Tether, and FRAX. And for those, we get yield from various DeFi protocols, such as lending markets like Aave. So if you put in like USDC or DAI into Aave, you earn yield because people are then borrowing your USDC and DAI, and they pay interest to the people who are supplying the tokens for them to borrow. And we also use things like yield aggregators. So like Yearn is one of our most popular tokens that people can deposit into yield strategies. And what they do is a combination of multiple things. So for their Yearn ETH, they do liquid staking, they do Aave, and they do other strategies as well that they can earn yield. And for same with their DAI and USDC tokens as well. They deploy it across various protocols in DeFi. And like the liquid staking tokens, they have their own kind of auto compounding token as well that accrues value. So you'll have this token, it might be worth one DAI when you first put it in. And then like a year later, it might be worth 1.05 DAI, indicating a 5% interest on that DAI. And so that's where Alchemix gets the yield for the self-repaying loan aspect. And if you want to, I can go into how our system works and utilizes this primitive.
Interesting. And based on this yield, how does the protocol determine which yield strategies to integrate and what criteria are used to access their suitability and risks?
Yeah, so we want to have a safe protocol that's friendly for everyone to use, where they have very little risk of using Alchemix. And so therefore we try to go with protocols that have had a long, good track record. That's why initially we were with Yearn, because the first yield aggregator, and they have a very good track record. I think they've only suffered two very minor incidents, and they reimbursed both of those right away. Um, so we're very happy with Yearn and the safety and confidence that we have with them. And then when we're looking at liquid stake tokens, we're looking at like how much liquidity they have on the market, and also their track record. And we talk to their teams, interview them, and make sure that we're not dealing with kind of shady people and stuff, because we want to ensure that our users have good outcomes using our protocol.
Exactly. And now that you mentioned the aspect of security, which is something that's very crucial. So, we've had incidents in the past where certain projects exploit investors or vulnerabilities occur. So maybe you could walk us through specific measures that Alchemix implemented to enhance protocol security and prevent similar vulnerabilities that have happened in the past to investors. So you could also tell us if you, the companies you guys are audited with or smart contracts, all of those stuff.
Yeah, so we've worked with multiple auditors throughout our history. The first one we did when we were a small team before we really had any funding was Certic, which is not the most reputable one. But then when we launched our version 2, which we are currently on, we went with a very reputable auditing company called Runtime Verification, who has done lots of work in the smart contract space, but they also do code audits for big firms and even government agencies, including NASA. Um, so we really really enjoy working with them. They were top-notch team. We have an ongoing bug bounty program with a company called Immunify. And so we have various bounties for critical, high, medium, low severity bugs. And if a white hat hacker finds a bug, and then we verify it to make sure this is actually a real concern. And if it is, then we fix the code, and we pay the hacker. And we've paid out probably around $50,000 through Immunify, through bug bounties. And keep in mind, nothing was like a major thing that could have really, it, you know, completely destroyed the protocol. But there were some like kind of griefing attacks, some things that people could do to make the protocol more inconvenient to use. Stuff like that is what we were able to fix. And we are now engaging, we've also engaged with Chain Security to do a follow-up audit on V2. And now we are working with Spearbit, Immunify, and Spearbit's um, audit competition firm called Cantina on our latest version that is actually under audit right now.
Interesting. Thanks for walking us through that. I really appreciate that. So,
Furthermore, there are some other things that we do. We restrict smart contracts from interacting with the current version of Alchemix. Um, and we do this because there are some potential kind of exploits that people can do if they use flash loans. It'll allow them to do some weird and nasty things. And so we do not allow smart contracts to interact with the protocol. So only user wallets can interact with it, and that gives it another layer of security that no crazy malicious code is going to be run on it.
okay, thank you very much. So, the next thing I wanted to know was the multi-chain strategy. I see the Alchemix have expanded to networks like Phantom. So, what are strategic considerations behind choosing specific chains for deployment? And how does the protocol ensure efficiency and security across these different networks?
Yeah, so Phantom is an old deployment. It's no longer working. We were on Phantom, and they only had one bridge at the time, which was called multi-chain, and they had a um, basically the like the Chinese government locked up the founder, put him in jail, and nobody really knows what's going on with the bridge there. It hasn't been working for over 2 years now. But we luckily had enough money in our treasury that we were able to plug the gap and allow people to migrate off of Phantom back onto Ethereum. Right now, we have deployments on Ethereum mainnet, Optimism mainnet, and Arbitrum L2. Those are both of our L2s. And we chose those because we had more security guarantees interacting with Ethereum's layer 2 ecosystem than with other, alternative EVM chains. We are going to be working with Layer Zero as a bridging partner um, going forward. So we'll have a little bit more optionality about what chains we go in. And Layer Zero has had a really good track record. Basically no incidents since they launched. So we think one of the heuristics for security is like, time in the market without getting hacked. Um, and there still might be something, there's some vulnerability, but if like I think Layer Zero has like billions and billions of TVL in their bridges, with and that is a very, very, very large bounty for a black hat hacker. And if they haven't found anything by now, then that generally means that the contracts are secure. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
This just to go or just to expatiate a little on the synthetic assets, okay? So I see that you guys are, working with synthetic assets like ALUSD and ALETH, Ethereum, obviously.
Mhm,
So, and other GALCX, which is basically leaded to the Alchemix. So I want to
mhm.
know, how do you guys manage these synthetic assets across multiple chains? Because I know this would present challenges. So how do you handle the minting, redemption, bridging of all these assets to maintain their value and utility across the ecosystem? Because obviously, once the value or utilities are lost, investors will no longer be interested. Traders will no longer be interested in what you guys are building.
Yeah, so we do a hub and spoke model with Ethereum being the main hub. So if you mint or you acquire ALUSD or ALETH or ALCX on Ethereum mainnet, you can then bridge that to Optimism and Arbitrum. And I think, yeah, Linnea, we also have our assets bridged over there because there's some dexes that are helping us provide liquidity there. And same with Metis. Um, and so for ALCX, that only can be minted on mainnet Ethereum. And the way the bridge works is that it will hold ALCX, the bridge contract on Ethereum, and only the amount of ALCX that is on the other chains can come back to Ethereum. um, because it's in that bridge. So that's pretty tight and self-contained. With ALUSD and ALETH, it's a little bit different. Um, so like you can mint ALUSD and ALETH on Optimism and Arbitrum through the Alchemix protocol. You can mint it over there as well, but it's limited for how much those L2s can send back to Ethereum mainnet. And the limiter is how much ALETH and ALUSD has left Ethereum mainnet. So let's say, 1 million ALUSD has been bridged from Ethereum to Optimism, and then someone mints 2 million AlioSD on Optimism, they could only bridge 1 million back to Ethereum mainnet because that's only how much has been bridged to Optimism. So that does kind of put the mainnet deployment at kind of a more protected status in that it can never have a supply on mainnet higher than what was minted on mainnet. And so it contains,
Right.
if there wasn't an issue on Optimism or Arbitrum, it would be self-contained.
Interesting. Thanks for going through that. I think we've just been talking about, what you guys are intending to build and all of that. So I think high time for us to talk about the token. So looking at the
Oh,
kind of
oh,
earnings I
before we
do.
do that, can I explain the Alchemix system and how it works? Because there's some intricacies that I wasn't able to get to. Um,
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. So the way Alchemix works, so we have these yield tokens that are collateral. And then when you deposit into Alchemix, it marks to market your deposit. So if you were to put in, let's say, 1,000 USDC into Alchemix, it would say that you have a deposit of 1,000. Even if you're earning yield, this won't increase. If let's say you put in 1,000, you don't mint any synthetic token, no ALUSD is minted, then anytime you get yield, you will then earn a credit that you can then mint in the form of ALUSD. And if you do take on debt, anytime you earn yield in the system, it will reduce your debt by that much. So if you put in 1,000, and let's say you borrowed 500, and then it earned, let's say, $50 throughout the course of a year. Your deposit would be 1,000, and your debt would be 450. So we'll repay your debt over time. And there is no interest on the borrowing, so you don't have to worry about the borrow rates. You just, think of it, the APY from the yield token, as a negative interest rate in the protocol.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
And then
Okay.
there's one more thing, sorry, one more thing. And then when that yield gets harvested, repays your debt, it goes into a peg stability module that we call the transmuter. And you can then deposit ALUSD or ALETH into the transmuter and then get a one-to-one redemption for the underlying token. So for ALUSD, that could be DAI, USDC, Tether, or FRAX. And for Ethereum, that would be ETH. So if there is like the price of the synthetic goes down and you want to get back the full value of it, you can stick it in the transmuter. Or if you see that the price is lower than the underlying asset, you can buy it off a DEX and then put it in the transmuter and arbitrage the price that way.
Nice. So could you walk us through the tokens use cases and maybe your tokenomics as well?
Yeah, so for the synthetic assets, there's two kind of main use cases for it. One is that you can kind of spend and save at the same time. So you can, save and get your interest from your full collateral, and then you can spend what you need to for expenses or any other reason you want to. And then the other one is that you can kind of you can loop it into the system. So you could, let's say you borrow ALUSD, then you sell it for USDC, then you put that USDC back into Alchemix, and you can borrow more ALUSD and do the same process, and you can get a little leverage on the system. So that is a way to boost your APR in a sense. So those are ways that you can use the synthetic, or you could mint it and then become a DEX liquidity provider and earn yield farming on various dexes, including Curve, Velodrome, Ramses, uh, and I think Bouncer as well.
Nice. And I see that you guys have a decreasing emissions schedule. So how does this
Yes.
design impact value? And what
Um,
are the intended
so so
emissions?
basically, Alchemix, when we first launched, we had rather high emissions because we wanted to distribute the coin to people who were supporting the protocol. And then every week, the emissions would drop. And now, and then the design was after 3 years, we would reach a point where we would be in a tail emission phase. And that's what we've been in for the past year. We are basically, the supply will increase by 140,000 tokens every year. And that's used for incentives in the ecosystem. And right now that's only it's like 4.2% inflation. And then because it's flat, the emissions are flat, there'll be essentially a lower inflation rate of the token every year in perpetuity. So, and yeah, and right now I think the supply is at like 2.5 million tokens. and in like 5 years it'll be close to 3 million. So it's yeah, pretty low inflation, but we feel like having some incentives is definitely beneficial for the function of the protocol and how we
Nice.
can,
Could
yeah.
you
Mhm.
could you like through the governance participation, what mechanisms are in place to encourage active participation in Alchemix governance?
Yeah, so one of the things that we value most right now is providing liquidity for our synthetic assets. When there's more liquidity in DEXs, it allows the supply of the synthetic to expand without it impacting the peg. And so that's where the majority of our incentives are going now. And also we have some, yeah, just for staking ALCX as well. We are working on our new version of Alchemix, and we plan to direct some of some of the incentives to depositors into the protocol as well. We're going to have for our next version, we're going to be migrating from version 2 to version 3 and having kind of a loyalty points program where the reward will be ALCX tokens for people who stay through the migration. So that'll be one way to earn the token. Um, and then for our next version, we have a lot of kind of big plans. There's going to be a governance upgrade where essentially the lockers of the token will be able to vote on where the emissions go. They'll also be able to vote on various other things that um, if it plays out the way we think it will actually create kind of like a voting market where voters can earn extra because other protocols will be kind of incentivizing voters to vote certain ways. So that's another thing. And with the tokenomic and governance upgrade, we do plan to start revenue sharing as well.
Nice. I think the next question I have is about the kind of partnerships you guys. I see you guys are partnered with Fight. So could you discuss how this collaboration benefits the Alchemix ecosystem?
Sometimes we like to work with like early projects because it can at times work out to be very good synergetic like gains for us. It can help the other protocol get TVL, and it can also help us get TVL and stuff. And one of our most beneficial partnerships we've had is with the Velodrome Dex on Optimism. Um, we were initially gifted a V NFT, which allows us to direct voting power for their decks, which basically allowed us to get kind of token rewards for our liquidity pairs. So things like a ALUSD USDC pair or ETH ALETH pair. Um, and there you can become a liquidity provider and earn the Velodrome token over there because of that. Um, and also because of this partnership, we were gifted an Aerodrome NFT, which is the biggest DEX on base L2. And so that's going to help us expand to base, which we're going to wait to do until we have our V3 out. Um, we've partnered with other synthetic asset issuers and LST providers. So for Aleth, we partner with FRAX because they have, and also Pyrex, which are called Dinero now, and they both have LSTs, and we both direct some token incentives to them. And since it's two protocols doing it instead of just one, we don't have to spend as much, and we can reward our users, with good APRs. Uh, um, and then, yeah, we've partnered with Aura and the Balancer ecosystem as well. Um, Uh, so a lot of the best partnerships we've had are with DEXs because that's kind of the thing that we need the most. We just started a partnership with another synthetic asset issuer on Optimism. They're called HAI, and you can mint stable coins with their system. And so they're going to be accepting the ETH LP token from Velodrome as collateral to borrow their stablecoin High over there. So that gives another use case. And we've also partnered with Premia. They do options, so you can do options with AliUSD and Ali using Premia as well. So what we're looking for is like kind of expanding the use cases of our synthetic tokens, um, because the more value or the more use cases they have, the less pressure there is on them to sell them, and and because selling does affect the price of the peg of synthetic assets. There's only so much liquidity, so trying to grow the protocol in those ways is one of our priorities.
Interesting. Thank you so much for what you through that. So another question I have about community engagement. What initiative does Alchemix undertake to foster community engagement and education?
Yeah, we have a very comprehensive doc site that people can learn about the protocol, and we try to engage and inform people on Twitter, X, on a frequent basis. Our community hub is in our Discord, where we have people on staff who are there to answer questions. If you post a question in there about how the protocol works or any questions you have in general, usually within an hour or two, they'll be answered by either a community member or somebody from the team. And then every Friday at was it at noon UTC? Um, we have a Friday fireside chat where one of my co-founders, he hosts it, and me and a few others from the team will drop in there, and we'll do some news updates, talking about kind of the things that we were focused on for the week, any accomplishments, any milestones we hit, and then the rest of it's just kind of chilling and talking and hanging out as a community. And we usually get about 30, 40 people in there from a week to week basis, and we have art competitions, where when people go in there, they can submit art, and if they win the contest, they earn like I think it's like $70, and second place gets 30. So it's it makes it worthwhile to do that, and that helps us create a little bit of content, and it's a fun thing for the community to do. Am I still here? Can you hear me? Hello?
Hello, sir.
Hello?
On
Hello,
Tele-
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just Telegram acting weird. So another question, I see you guys are releasing Alchemix V2. So with the release of Alchemix V2, what are the key enhancements over the previous version? And how do they align with the protocol's long-term vision?
Yeah, so we're currently on V2 and we're working on V3. We're in the middle of the auditing process. We hope to get it out by summertime, sometime in the summer. And basically, it's trying to address one of our main issues with Alchemix, which is scalability. We currently have like a TVL of around like $50 million, and without kind of token incentives, we can't get it much higher. Um, because people are very thirsty for finding the best yields in DeFi, and if it goes up much higher, then our yields won't be good enough for our liquidity providers, and it could affect the pegs of the synthetic assets. So we are developing V3 with this limitation in mind. We have a much more powerful pegging mechanism, where instead of the redemptions kind of happening according to the flows of yields, there will be a fixed duration or fixed period redemption. So let's say you buy like ALUSD falls to let's say 98 cents when it's supposed to be $1, and then you see that it takes 2 months to redeem it, you will be able to get a one-to-one token conversion from ALUSD to USDC. And if you annualize that 2% difference in price over a year, that would be a 12% fixed interest. So that is going to be a powerful primitive in DeFi and giving people a a very strong fixed interest protocol in that regard. And then because we're confident in this as a pegging mechanism, we're going to be increasing our loan to value ratio, which you can borrow up to 90%, which will allow you to, borrow more off of your collateral. And then if you want to loop it and do the leverage of it, you can get many more multiples when the LTV is higher. Theoretical, if we're at 90% LTV, is to get 10x leverage. So if you see Alchemix is providing 5% interest for your collateral, you could, do this loop where you borrow ALUSD, sell it for USDC, put it back in Alchemix, and you do that a number of times. And theoretically, you can get up to a 10x leverage. So that 5% could turn into 50%. And since we have this better pegging mechanism, we think LPs, liquidity providers and DEXs, will feel more confident in deploying capital to Alchemix's pools. And even if there is a loss in the pools, let's say they suffer a permanent loss, there's like a depeg and they're like, oh, I need to get out, or I want to, I don't like this, they can, withdraw their LP, and then they can put their ALUSD or ALE in the redemption module and get a one-to-one, and they'll know exactly when they'll be able to have this redemption done. And so with those improvements, we think that the protocol can scale much, much higher than it is today.
Nice. Thank you so much for walking us through that. So I think another question I have is, are there plans to support additional collateral types beyond the current offerings, and what considerations are involved in evaluating new assets for inclusion?
Yeah, so we're sticking with like Ethereum and and stable coins as our primary offerings. We have flirted with the idea of having Bitcoin, like a synthetic Bitcoin token as well. But the problem there is that we cannot find consistent, reliable yields for Bitcoin in DeFi, and we don't want to offer people like 0.5% interest on their Bitcoin. I don't think that would be a very compelling product. If there are other assets that are compelling, we will look at them. But we do have the ability to add different stable coins, for example, because they can still be under the ALUSD umbrella, and different liquid staking tokens for Ethereum as well. We do plan in a later expansion of our V3 to offer more traditional lending products. Right now in Alchemix, you can only do like use ETH as collateral to borrow ALETH, and then stable coins as collateral to borrow ALUSD. And one benefit of this is that there's like no liquidations because the synthetic tracks the price of the underlying. So we don't need liquidations. But if we were to do a more traditional model, let's say you can use an ETH yield token to borrow ALUSD. That would be possible in our version 3 with a later expansion to it. It won't be there at launch, but we are planning on doing this. And if we do that, then that would allow us to vastly increase the collateral options for users, um, and become more of a traditional CDP and lending product in that regard, but with some unique Alchemix innovation that we have on top of it.
Yeah, thank you so much for your answer. Think the last question I have is how does Alchemix envision the future of DeFi lending, and what role does protocol aim to play in shaping innovative financial products?
Yeah, I mean, we want to offer a product that can appeal to both the casual and the hardcore user. We think the spend and save aspect of Alchemix is very compelling. So in the past, people have deposited ALUSD or deposited DAI into Alchemix, borrowed ALUSD, and then with their ALUSD bought various things from cars to boats to paying off their student loans to hospital bills and stuff like that. And we think that's a very compelling use case is, if you have like a stack of capital, you put it in there, you earn yield on it, and then you spend what you need, and then your debt will decrease over time. And that is, the kind of casual use case of it. And I think that's very compelling for a lot of people if they want to have a very like no maintenance, very safe, I can just set and forget about this thing and come back a year later type of product. That's one thing we offer. And then the other one would be for, especially in version 3, the advanced users who want to maximize their yield. And they would do that by looping in the protocol. And they could do this, and if they're smart about it, they can get probably market leading rates. Uh, because yeah, we plan to offer very competitive yield token for version 3 that's already pretty close to market leading yields. Um, and then if you then loop on top of that, then frankly, there's nothing that's going to be able to beat that if what you're after is maximizing your yields.
Yeah, I really appreciate the answer.
And yeah,
I
so
think points will be
mhm.
taking some community questions, but before that, do you have anything you'd like to touch on before we get some questions from the community?
I mean, I encourage people, like, before you invest in the token, to check out the protocol and try using it. If you're sensitive to gas prices, you can try Optimism and Arbitrum. They're incredibly cheap transactions over there, very fast blockchains. And if you go to our webpage, alchemix.fi, you'll see the vaults that you can deposit into. And then if you want to then earn on your synthetics or trade with them, you can go to the farms page, and that'll take you to the dexes where you can trade them. So I would encourage anybody who's curious about our ecosystem to start with that. And if you find that compelling, then come into the Discord, ask some questions, and learn more about it. And then if you're happy with everything, then I would say to, maybe invest if you want to.
Yeah, thank you so much for. I really enjoyed the first questions with you, and the answers you gave were very detailed and explanatory. I really appreciate it. So, guys, if you have questions, I already see some hands raised. So let's have the hand I saw first. Whenever you've been unmuted, you can ask a question, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Moonshine. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. During the course of the year, I saw that Moonshine did not ask anything pertaining your marketing strategies. So, what are your marketing strategies for this project right currently? What plans do you have to, further take it to other communities, whether it's Twitter, Discord, or whatsoever, to,
Um,
push the
yeah,
visibility of the project? So that's,
yeah. Our
thank you.
our main distribution channel for marketing right now is Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it. Our main account has a large following, and so do I, and I use that to promote Alchemix. Uh, in its various forms. We have a Medium where we publish articles as well. I I've been a little bit radio silent on the podcast circuits and doing AMAs like this because we've been heads down focusing on V3. But since we are getting close to completion of that, I'm working on booking several different podcasts in the space so we can get more exposure and, more people learning about it. Um, and we are also engaging with a PR firm that's going to help us get into, crypto media, like news sites and stuff like that. So think like CoinDesk, Blockworks, Decrypt, and other leading publications. So we can spread the word as much. We don't like to do as much like, kind of internet paid advertising like Google ads or Facebook ads. Just because so many of the crypto ads are just phishing scam links that we think that people largely ignore them. Um, but we will probably also, once we launch V3, start to look at doing sponsorships for podcasts as well, so we can get our name out there a little bit more.
Okay, that's
And
nice, and then I really like your concept of being able to join podcasts and be able to talk about your project more. Since I see that there is no time, I would have loved to ask you my second question, but anyway, I will move into your
oh,
chat,
I
ask
can
the rest
follow
of my question.
up with one other thing. We've done some kind of educational contests with a layer 3, and we've had a pretty good uptake from that as well. And that basically has users go on a quest where they have to use the protocol and do various things in it. And then upon doing that, they get a reward. And we'll definitely plan to do more things like that for version 3 when it's out.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much for answering my question, and
Yeah, my pleasure.
thank you, Munchi, for the opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome, Benova. Thank you for throwing in that question. Okay, let's have I just unmuted someone. Telegram is just acting up. Let me see.
Mr. Ernest.
Yeah, please go on, Mr. Ines. Thank you so much. Okay, Mr. Ines, it seems he's having some issues trying to connect. Let's have someone else speak. Okay, let's have Nelks. Nelks, you can go on next. I think Telegram is just acting weird today. I don't know if it's just from my end. Nelks,
Yeah.
are you there? Okay, we have Mr. Ines joining back. So, Mr. Ines, are you there?
Yeah. Sorry about the
Okay, go
call.
on with your question. It's
Yeah,
okay.
so my question is given Alchemix's use of incentives to control liquidity across multiple third-party DeFi protocols, what is the long-term vision for protocol native liquidity, and could Alchemix develop its own AMM or LP6 system?
That is something we have thought about, and that could potentially be in our future roadmap. We are having sort of a pseudo AMM with our new redemption module. It's sort of something like a time-weighted automatic market maker. Um, and the fact that you can execute trades that's just that they're not instantaneous, that they would be, kind of like a set duration upon you doing that. So that is one area of swapping we will be moving into, just kind of natively into the protocol. But as far as starting our own DEX, that might involve having to launch a new token for it and stuff like that, because like there's hundreds of DEXs out there, and in order to stand out, you would have to have some type of flywheel effect, sort of like the V33 DEXs, like Velodrome, Aerodrome, and other ones similar to it. And believe it or not, that's a very large undertaking. And if it's just a simple fork of what's out there, it's not going to be compelling. So we would have to do development to make it somehow specialized for ourselves. So that is something I'm not ruling out, but it's also something that's not our specialty. And it's not our current focus. But we do have, token voting power in Curve and Balancer, in Velodrome, and Aerodrome, and Ramses, and a couple other smaller dexes as well. So via those proxies, we kind of already have like kind of dex powers to steer things, liquidity our way.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Ines, for throwing in that question.
Yeah,
Next
that's a good question.
week, what did you say, Scoopy?
That's a good question. Yeah. No, it's
All right.
definitely something we've thought about and talked about. It's just like, we got to do something innovative because we don't really like just forking other people's code.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Ines, once again for coming up with such a question. So now, please could you go next with your question?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Hi, Scoopy Tropless, right?
Yeah.
I've been cracking my head around pronouncing the name since. Okay. During the course of the AMA, you talked about your liquidity and also you talked about market makers. And so based on that, I was trying to see if I can get you to see your trading volume and if your project is already live, because you talked about version 1 and V2, and now you're on V3. Now, based on this, why I'm trying to look at if your coin is live and checked, study your trading volume because you're a liquidity provider. So I'm trying to understand what percentage are those providers, what are they controlling? At what percentage are they controlling based on your token allocations? How many percent is those liquidity provider controlling? And are they part of your team, or they are just a body that you guys have to pay money for them to come on board and also provide market make for you and also provide us liquidity?
All right. So there's two different types of market makers that we use. One is these are DEX market makers, and that can be anyone. That can be anyone in this chat too. And so what you would do for becoming a liquidity provider on a DEX or market maker there is that, like, let's go with the Aleth WETH pool, which is on Curve. So you could take your Aleth and WETH tokens or ETH tokens and deposit them into this liquidity pool. It would then give you a token that's an LP token. It's another ERC20 token that's a representative of your share in the liquidity pool. You then would take that token and then stake it in a platform like Convex. If you go to the Alchemix.fi website and then click on the Farms tab on the left side, you will see that pool there, and it will take you to a deposit and stake page. And if you then stake those LP tokens on Convex, it'll give you, currently it's saying 15.8% APR. So that is one form of market makers, and that's open to everyone. That's part of DeFi. And then for centralized exchanges like Coinbase and Binance, we have market making deals with professional market makers. So the one we use is a market maker called MME, and they essentially, the terms of this deal is that we provide them with an Alchemix ALCX token loan, and then and there's some terms to this loan, but in exchange for us loaning them this, that they will provide liquidity in the form of Tether and ETH, the two different pairs it has, or USDC on Coinbase. And they will then provide like a certain amount of depth to the liquidity at a certain spread, and they are a delta neutral platform, so they're just essentially harvesting volatility, but they're not, you know, making money on shorting or longing the token or anything like that. So they're just trying to, make a little 0.5% here, 0.5% there on trades, and do that in volume. And so that's how we get liquidity on, the centralized exchanges, and on DEXs we have token incentives for anybody who's open to participate. And for the ALCX token, we have 2 pools for that on mainnet. There's one on Balancer DEX. You can stake with the Aura platform, which boosts the APR. And then there's also one on Curve, where it's ALCX is paired with FRAX, the stable coin. And that one's actually earning 88% APR right now. So it's not a bad deal. And then we also have different incentives on Arbitrum and Optimism as well. So if you go to our website, on the top right corner, you'll see a little ETH icon when you connect. But if you click on that, you can switch chains. And when you switch chains, the farm page will update and show you the different kind of markets that you can become a liquidity provider for.
Okay, that was quite interesting because the way you were just saying it, I was also following through, and I think you're a very good teacher. So I was able to see
Maybe I was in another life.
I was able to see the pool and say, because it's call for concern, when you're trying to bring the normies in and they don't understand how to check those things. That's why I have to ask.
Yeah, this is just kind of traditional yield farming that's kind of been a part of DeFi for the past like 4 or 5 years now. And I think a synthetics protocol started this by making a staking contract where you could deposit LP tokens and get rewards, and then it kind of spread all throughout DeFi.
All right. So thank you very much. Thank you, Motion. So when your podcast is live, I know you guys are more. I know you guys are more active on Discord. Sorry, my son is trying to ask a question. All right, I will chat you up. I'll go to your Discord and space. I see that you guys don't have any socials on TG. So I'll
Yeah, hit us up in Discord. That's where we're most active.
Most active.
Happy to answer any questions there.
Thanks, Motion. Thanks, Scoopy Topless. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Nelks, for jumping on the mic with your son. Really appreciate the question. So, let's have a last question here. Victor, no, and go as the last question of today's AMA.
Hello, Moonshine. Thank you for having me here. Hello, can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello, Scoopy. Nice presentation. So my question is, in what ways could Alchemix adjust its emission model over time to ensure long-term sustainability, especially? Hello, can you hear me?
Victor, I think
you broke up a little bit.
try to
Okay, should
ask
I
your
repeat?
question. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so in what ways could Alchemix adjust its emission model over time to ensure long-term sustainability? Can you hear me?
Yeah. So how can we adjust our
I'm
token
not done
emission schedule
it.
for more
Especially
sustainability?
when
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Victor, your network connection is really bad. I'm sorry we can't take your question.
I can try to
But
answer it. I think I got the gist of what he was trying to say there. He's asking about how can we make sure our token emissions are sustainable long term. And so right now, our revenue is several $1 million a year running the Alchemix protocol. And what we do with probably about 30 to 40% of our income is that we execute ALCX buybacks. And through that, we have essentially kind of, you know, basically bought back almost every single token emitted over the past probably 6 months. So that is one way that we have, tried to make it more sustainable. We are also on our tail emissions schedule, which is only a 4% inflation rate and falling every year. So we feel like that, compared to the float that is out there, is a relatively small amount of tokens to be introducing to the ecosystem. It's higher than Bitcoin now after what, 5 halvenings, or is it 4 now? But very in line with Bitcoin before its previous halvening, and less than ETH before it switched to proof of stake. So it's not that high in the grand scheme of things. And one thing that we're going to do in the future is to have revenue sharing for people who stake our token. And so they'll have governance power, they'll have voting power for various things in the protocol, and in addition, they will also get protocol revenue. So because of that, when the ecosystem grows, then they can earn money from that, and we have some different anti-dilution mechanisms built into our staking system as well. So that revenue share should be pretty good over time, and hopefully offset, if not surpass, the amount emitted in our emissions, token emissions.
All right. I'm so sorry I had to mute you, Victor. There was just a lot of feedback coming from your end. And I'm happy Scoopy was able to even get a part of your question, which was just answered. So thank you all so much for asking each questions that were tailored to specifically what the project has to offer. Alchemix sounds like a very, very great project, because seeing how you were able to dive into various aspects of the project is something I really commend. It's hard to see a lot of project owners who are really knowledgeable about their projects and willing to discuss in details what they plan to offer and the utilities they plan to offer too. So thank you so much once again. So with that, Scoopy, that's all the question we're taking for today's AMA. But before I close down the VC, is there any final words you'd like to give?
Yeah, thanks for listening. If you want to learn more about Alchemix, come into our Discord, follow us on Twitter, and be on the lookout for announcements regarding version 3. We plan to start sharing information probably once our last audit begins. And then we'll have more details around the launch time and other things like that. So yeah, thank you for listening, everyone, and stay tuned, because I'm very excited for what we're building.
Thank you so much, Scoopy. So guys, do well to join their socials as well. Follow them on X, because that is where you get updates about the project. Thank you all for joining today's AMA. Bye, guys.